He won battles he had no right to win. He stayed loyal to an emperor who may have feared him more than he admired him, and despite saving a crumbling empire, he died in disgrace. This is the story of Belisarius, the last great Roman general. Belisarius was born around 500 AD in Illyria, a rugged region in the Balkans known for producing hardened soldiers. The Western Roman Empire had already fallen, but in the east, the Byzantines still called themselves Roman and held on to what was left. From a young age, Belisarius entered military service. He joined the Bucellari, an elite cavalry unit, personally loyal to their commander. He soon came under the wing of a rising political figure, Justinian, the ambitious nephew of the Eastern Emperor. When Justinian took the throne in 527 AD, he brought Belisarius with him, and together they would change the course of history. Belisarius's first true test came on the eastern frontier, facing off against the mighty Sassanid Empire, Persia. In 530 AD, at the Battle of Dara, he commanded a much smaller force against a veteran Persian army. But Belisarius had a plan. He ordered defensive trenches, staged a fake retreat, and launched a devastating cavalry ambush. The result? A shocking Byzantine victory. A year later, though, fortune turned. At Callinicum, his forces were overextended and defeated. Many blamed overconfident advisors pushing for battle. But even in defeat, Belisarius managed a disciplined retreat, saving much of his army. It showed a different kind of brilliance, the ability to lose with grace and learn from failure. In 532, danger didn't come from Persia, but from within. The Nika riots erupted in Constantinople, a massive revolt sparked by rival chariot factions, the Blues and Greens. But underneath, it was about corruption, taxation, and a people sick of imperial rule. The city burned. Senators plotted to replace Justinian. The emperor nearly fled, but Belisarius and another general, Mundus, stood firm. They lured the rebels into the hippodrome under the pretense of negotiations, then sealed the gates. What followed was a massacre. Over 30,000 rioters killed. Brutal? Yes, but it saved Justinian's rule, and proved Belisarius wasn't just a battlefield tactician, he was the sword that held the empire together. Just 1 year later, Justinian launched a bold plan to reclaim the lost western provinces, starting with North Africa, ruled by the Vandals. The Vandals were a Germanic tribe that had carved out a powerful kingdom centered around Carthage. Known for their naval prowess, they had famously sacked Rome in 455 AD, leaving a scar on Roman pride. Justinian saw North Africa as more than a lost province. It was the empire's breadbasket, vital for grain supplies to Constantinople. The Vandals, as Arians, also clashed with the Orthodox Christianity of the Byzantines, adding a religious edge to the conflict. Reclaiming it would restore imperial glory and secure economic stability. He sent Belisarius with just 15,000 men, a daring gamble across hostile seas against a formidable naval power. But Belisarius struck fast. He landed near Carthage, rallied local support, weary of Vandal rule, and spread a message: Rome had returned. At the Battle of Ad Decimum, Vandal King Gelimer attacked with a larger force, but his troops were poorly coordinated. Belisarius exploited the chaos, turning the tide and scattering the enemy. Days later, he marched into Carthage without a fight, welcomed by a population eager for change. The Vandals weren't finished, though. Gelimer regrouped, calling on allies and mustering his remaining forces. Months later, at the Battle of Tricomarum, Belisarius faced them again. With precise tactics and a smaller but disciplined army, he shattered their resistance for good. North Africa, lost for a century, was Roman again. It was one of the most efficient campaigns in ancient history, showcasing Belisarius's strategic genius. Next, Italy. In 535, Belisarius launched a campaign against the Ostrogoths, who ruled the old Roman heartland. The Ostrogoths, another Germanic tribe, had taken over Italy after the Western Empire's fall. Under King Theodoric the Great, they had maintained stability, blending Roman and Gothic traditions, but after Theodoric's death, the kingdom fractured into political chaos. Justinian saw an opportunity to exploit this instability and restore Roman rule to the empire's historic core. Belisarius began with Sicily, quickly taken. Then Naples, where he found a weakness, an unused aqueduct. Sending troops through the tunnel, he seized the city from within. By 536, he marched into Rome itself, but taking Rome was easy, holding it was not. The Goths, under their new king Vitiges, responded with fury. In 537, they besieged the Eternal City with a massive force, vastly outnumbering Belisarius's troops. supplies dwindled, and the civilian population grew restless, resentful of the occupation. Belisarius held firm for over a year, using deception, ambushes, and mind games, faking troop movements to exaggerate his strength. His wife Antonina proved invaluable, managing logistics and negotiating with local leaders to maintain support. The siege was a grueling test of endurance, with Belisarius stretched thin against a determined enemy. Finally, the Goths broke and the siege lifted. Then in 540, Belisarius made his boldest move yet. He captured Ravenna, the Gothic capital. Desperate, the Goths offered him the imperial crown, a tempting offer amid the campaign's hardships. He pretended to accept, only to surrender the city to Justinian. Loyal to the end, or shrewd enough to stay alive, perhaps both. For all his victories, Belisarius's true battlefield may have been the imperial court. His wife, Antonina, was close to Empress Theodora, powerful, cunning, and feared. Rumors swirled that Antonina spied on her husband. Others say she protected him. Justinian began to mistrust Belisarius. He was recalled from campaigns, sent with too few troops, or sidelined entirely. Why? Jealousy, paranoia, or simply politics? Still, Belisarius obeyed. He never rebelled, never plotted, never took more than he was given. His loyalty was unshakable. Even in old age, the empire turned to him. In 559, when Huns and Bulgars crossed the Danube and threatened Constantinople, Belisarius, now past 60, led a scratch army of veterans and citizens and routed them. But 3 years later, his reward was betrayal. In 562, he was accused of corruption, arrested, imprisoned. The charges were likely fabricated. Though pardoned, the stain remained. He retired in silence. Belisarius died around 565 AD, the same year as Justinian. Two men who rebuilt an empire and destroyed each other. In the centuries that followed, legends grew. One story, likely false but powerful, claimed Belisarius was blinded and left to beg for coins, whispering, "Give an obol to Belisarius whom justice has forgotten." Whether true or not, the image stuck, because Belisarius gave everything and received little in return. But today, historians recognize him for what he was, one of the greatest generals who ever lived, a man who saved an empire with brilliance, courage, and loyalty, a Roman in every sense, long after Rome had died. He was the last light of an ancient world, and though that light faded, it never went out. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through history, leave a like and subscribe.